Okay, so continuing Perek Gimel, Sif Beis, what are they called? What do they call anything? Okay, let's say Sim Beis. So the Ramchal says, in order to, so what the Ramchal laid out in the beginning, the whole concept, the purpose of creation, concept of Hatova, and I went to very extensively the concept of Vekas, what the Rebbe Moshe really wants, and so on, what it is. But the real question, of course, is okay. So what's the wherewithal to this? How do you achieve this? So clearly, what the Rebbe Moshe has to do is create an entire setup. Let's use that word, setup, with all the appropriate elements in place. And that setup will allow an individual to achieve the purpose or to accomplish the objective, which is the purpose of the Bria. So therefore, Ramchal is going to mention some of the fundamental or essential elements that are required for the setup. So he says that what the Rebbe Hashem did is he created, which is interesting, two different elements, but it's not just two different elements that can be combined. It's two elements which are exactly opposing in nature. It's interesting. It's two elements, two things, so to speak, okay? And each one's nature will oppose the other. So what you have here, fundamentally, if that's the case, is a being that is composed of these two elements that have opposing natures will never know rest. Obviously. He'll always be in a state of combat. You know what I'm saying? It's like, can you imagine one element is water and the other element is fire. Assuming that they can coexist together. Right? What's going to be the experience here? What's going to happen? Well, obviously the fire is always going to try to extinguish the water, and the water is always going to try to put out the fire. You see? So this is the problem of mankind, that he is created with two specific elements, both which have the exact opposite nature, which leaves him always in a state of combat, unrest. That's why when a guy dies, they say that he went to his rest, right? That doesn't mean he went to the Holiday Inn, or the Hilton or something like that. He went to his rest because fundamentally he has been in combat his entire life. And there's nothing he can do about it because he just has two different elements. The only way to solve it is to remove one of the elements, which is exactly what happened. The guy dies, so the physical element is gone, so the other element is by itself. Oh, no conflict. You see? That's why we say a guy dies, goes to his rest. He went to his menucha.
Probably feels very good.
He feels good in one sense, but the problem is, when you're finally dead, you probably feel very good that you're dead. And then you wonder why everybody's crying out there. You probably want to cry for them, usually that's what happens. I mean, when the person dies, and whoever he is leaves, his ego, his neshama, whatever, and he's looking at everybody else in the audience, because when he dies, he doesn't leave. He hovers over the body, and he's in shock. The neshama's in shock. And, but eventually what happens is, the neshama becomes very aware of its own nature, and so on, So we mourn the neshama, because we mourn the loss and so on. But does the neshama mourn us, and so to speak? Not really, no. Because it knows the truth. It knows that eventually everybody dies, and eventually it will be rejoined, because it is in the reality of death. Whereas everybody else is alive, everybody else fears death, because a lot of the fear, there's two dinim of the fear. If you want to use a brisketite, One din of the fear is the element of the unknown. Nobody knows. So therefore, when nobody knows, everybody fears what? annihilation or extinction, the complete extinction of the being. Everybody's afraid of that, because within us we have the tendency to want to live forever, So that's a fear. Is a concept, is the possibility of extinction, And then, of course, we experience fear because it's automatic. There's no way. In fact, the greatest psychological force known to man that will determine almost everything. What's the greatest need of man? Survival, or call it a different word.
Preservation.
Self-preservation. That's right. The greatest psychological need of an individual, of any being that lives, is self-preservation. And that is a built-in part of the structure. Because if not, could you imagine anybody's walking around with a switch? That if you want, you could just flip a switch and instantly terminate it. I would think by now most of mankind would have pulled the switch already, There are so many people, they just don't have the courage to go through with it because, as far as they know, the alternative is extinction, complete annihilation, But you'd be surprised, I remember I was once in Egypt, whatever. Anyway, I was in a taxi driver. I remember, never forgot this, It was an Egyptian guy. I took a taxi because I wanted to go into the Egyptian museum, which is incredible. Anyway, so we passed the street and he had to stop by a light, and in that street, somebody had died and they were carrying the coffin. And I don't know what it was all screaming, and all that, I remember this taxi driver looked at that funeral procession with envy. He did with envy, And he said, he wishes he was there. Why? Because it was terrible. The struggle to provide a livelihood in Egypt at that time. This was 1990. What is this? 1983, long time ago. The struggle to survival was just too much for him. He couldn't stand it, because he was a taxi driver. Meanwhile, there was like 80 other taxi drivers looking for people. I mean, how much can you make a living that way? And he envied the guy's death, I mean, does that mean he would pull the switch? Maybe. So, fortunately, the Rosh did not provide us with a switch. So if a guy wants to kill himself, he has to go through a real laborious process, like taking cyanide, or you can't take cyanide. But
walking is not around.
What? Walk in front of a train. I mean, whatever. Jump off the roof. Yeah.
There's two reasons why people are afraid of that.
Yeah.
We spoke about the first one.
Well, the first is the fear of extinction.
Right.
So that person is afraid because he's afraid he won't survive. I think probably another. Well, one is psychological. There's no rationale. You're just afraid to die. There's no thought involved. You know what I'm saying? There's no. You know what I'm saying? It's an instinct that you need to survive. You don't think about that. You automatically take actions that will enable you to survive. So you have that. You can't. It's very difficult to fight the instinct of self-preservation. It's very hard. That's why most people who are absolutely miserable won't commit suicide. Very difficult to go against. What's interesting is man is the only creature that can commit suicide. There's only one animal that can commit suicide.
Lemmings?
The lemmings.
No, they don't.
What?
It's not true.
It's not true? Bob Meiser. There's a legend of it's not a legend, the lemmings. And en masse, they go over the cliff, and they kill themselves. It's not true. Anyway. Okay. But anyway, man is the only creature.
Everybody who came onto the topic is, we started with the combat between the two. The two elements.
Anyway, so what this simply means is that man is in a perpetual milchama. No rest. That's the problem here. Why diversion do that? So first of all, what are these elements? So the first one is called minishama sichlis v'zako. The first element is a spiritual element called the neshama. That's the first element.
So what does he mean when he says sichlis?
Oh, one second. And then the second element is guf artzi v'okol, the physical body that's ochre is dense, whatever, and earthy. So you're talking about there's an entity which is physical and there's an entity which is spiritual. This is what we're talking about, okay? And what the Ramchal says is shechol echad mehem yata b'tivo l'tzidoi. Each one, it's not that just two components, but each one pulls toward its side. So that obviously creates enormous conflict, you see. So each one presents tendencies, okay? So obviously the spiritual pulls, so he says, the guf pulls to the chumrus, and the neshama pulls toward the sichlius. The guf pulls toward the materialistic desires, or those desires which the body needs. It's a better way to look at it, which obviously involves materialism. Because the fulfillment of the physical needs involves a materialistic encounter with the physical world, So I'm not calling it material. Usually when you say somebody's materialistic, I mean he wants more and more material, more cars, more money, and so on, and all that kind of stuff, right? No, chumia simply means a physical direction to fulfill the needs. And the neshama to sichlius, and therefore you'll find a war between them. It's a constant state of combat that an individual is in. Never rests, I said, till he's dead. Then we say he went on to his rest, whatever, right? Now, what's interesting here is these are the only two components the Ramchal mentions. That's very important, okay? Because we're used to thinking about a Yetzer Hara also, and a Yetzer Tov, which we'll get into. Who is the Yetzer Hara? Who is the Yetzer Tov? That's a very interesting concept, right? And second thing is the concept of neshama and sichlius. What does it mean then? Sichlius, What does it mean, sichlius? So sichlius means what? Intellect. In the world of intellect, intellectual, and so on. Now, let's take a look at that. When we say that the guf, the neti of the guf, or the body draws you, or forces you, or exerts a power over you, that you should go toward the physical, what does that mean? Is it bad or good or bad? No, it's not good or bad. What it really means is the body needs to sustain itself. See, we're talking about eating, sleeping, drinking, etc. These are activities that the body must engage in order to sustain itself. That's what he means by chumrus, and therefore, automatically we must distinguish. Well, what's bad about chumrus if that's the case? You know what I'm saying? So what's bad about it? And the answer is, it's not bad per se. A person has to do what he needs to do to survive. In fact, there's a mitzvah saseh. What's a mitzvah saseh? Who? No. What? Exactly. The Rebbe Hashem says, I want you to be healthy, which means I want you to preserve what's called the vitality or the integrity of the body, because if not, obviously the guy dies, and so on. That's a mitzvah saseh. And you find many references in Chazal,
So doing exercise is a mitzvah saseh?
Moedik mitzvah saseh. In fact, I once saw Chazon Ish say, it said something interesting. He said the Rebbe Hashem has tremendous love when a person takes care of his body. I mean, the way he describes it, it's a tremendous mitzvah, he says. So if a person is going to the gym, in order to allow, for health reasons, not to be a bodybuilder, and so on, contests and all that kind of stuff, But if a person goes to a gym to do exercise, it's called strength training, or weight training, or resistance training. It's all the same thing. For the purposes of enabling his muscular structure, his bone and his muscle to be able to move and walk around, that's an incredible mitzvah. It's interesting. People don't realize that and so on. So basically what chumrus is merely to satisfy those needs that you need to survive. What it means, and that is a moedik mitzvah. It's like Hillel used to wash his face. So they said, what are you doing that for? So he says, look, Moshe gave me the gift of the body. I gotta take care of it. It's really a present of God. You know, I need to take care of it. If a king gave you a gift, what would you do? You'd let it just, you know, fall apart. Which of course not. It would be precious. So Hillel said, and it's again, Nishmatim Yoidis Nafshesechem. You know, you have to take care of the body. Washing is part of that because it removes bacteria, whatever, all the stuff that is in the soil. So this is very important. Okay, so then when we say Chumrius, we'll take a look later, you know, so then what does it mean? We'll talk about the Yetzer Hara. Then what is the Yetzer Hara in all of this? And so on. But anyway, so far. So he's saying that the body exerts a force for an individual to act in accordance with the needs of the body. Period. There's no way you can get around it, basically. Ultimately, anyway. And the neshama sichlius, the neshama exerts a force which is called intellect, or, you know, the faculty of the intellect is what? So you have to understand, what does sichlius mean? Who knows? Anybody know? That's the Lashon Ramchal. And it's interesting, he never explains what sichlius is. You know, we can immediately know what the guf is, what chumrius is. What's sichlius really? And then, but remember, the chumrius and the sichlius, right, are in conflict with each other. So whatever you're going to say needs to be understood in that context, you know.
So
what?
Spiritual forces.
Yeah, the Ramchal says that the sichlius of the neshama is ruchnius. The question is, what is it?
Sichlius is intellect, no?
Yeah, but what does intellect mean? What does that mean?
Find other animals that have
Intellect is a faculty of the brain.
It would be the opposite of chumrius. So the chumrius is to sustain a physical need. This is to elevate someone on a higher level, to go up and become better.
No. You see, look,
No?
do not define something by its consequences. You just tell me the consequences to go on a higher level. I want to know what it is. So I'm saying, tell me what is sichlius. We know the translation. Sichlius means intellectual, or the intellect or intellectual. What does that mean? Don't get caught up in words. It's very easy to hear a word and say, well, I know what that means, but you don't. But we're so used to using the word, we think we know. Many people are satisfied with vagueness. This goes on all the time. And then when you stop a guy and say, excuse me, what is this? Define it. You know, it's astounding. What?
The ability to transcend the chumrius.
No, that's the action of the seichel. But what is the seichel? Again, you tell me a property or an action that the seichel can do, but I don't know what it is. Like if I said, when an elephant, you know, can crush anything if it steps on it, does that tell me what in the world an elephant is? No. See the problem. So, what do you think?
I mean, he said it's spirituality, right?
It's not easy.
We've been here this long.
What is it?
Everybody here is just into chumrius. That's why.
There's very hidden irony in this question.
People are not using their seichel. This is the problem.
Okay.
Nobody knows?
Are we trying to? Should we try to define what ruchnius is?
No.
No.
Sichlius.
What's sichlius?
But he said sichlius is ruchnius. So
Well, what's ruchnius?
what's ruchnius?
Spirituality.
Spirituality.
What's
No,
spirituality?
that's a translation. We don't want translations. We want definitions. Well, you know French. What's sichlius in French? What's spirituality in French?
Same word.
Spirituality?
Yeah.
Is it? It's interesting.
Intellect also the same word.
But you wouldn't say it intellect, you'd say it French way. How do the French say it?
I would say an intellectual, an intellectual. Same thing.
Into what?
Intellectual.
Oh, intellectual, because that's the French contribution. Okay. Yeah.
We're stuck.
What?
We're stuck.
You're stuck. Okay. What does the intellect do?
Hopefully things.
Hopefully thinks, reasons.
Processes.
What?
I think it seeks and processes. There's an appetite.
What does it seek?
It deals with concepts,
Derech
conceptual
Hashem.
What does the
thoughts,
intellect
concepts.
seek?
To understand.
The truth.
Truth.
Absolutely.
What is truth?
Creator.
No, I didn't know who is true. What is truth? What's truth? Anybody tell me what truth is?
The reality?
Who?
Reality?
Reality. That's what it is. What is real? What is out there, really? Not maybe. That's what truth is. Nothing more than our ability, or it's the perception of reality as it appears to us is truth. So the major idea of the intellect is truth. You know, what is out there? The physical body is not interested in truth. It's into what's called needs fulfillment.
Intellect could be used for falsehood.
Forget about its deviation. Right now, all I'm saying is that the difference between the intellect and the physical body seeks fulfillment. Right? That's all it seeks. It doesn't seek truth. The intellect, however, seeks truth. Right? Is truth a powerful force? What do you think?
Not in this generation. It could be.
Truth is a
It's an
powerful force.
elevation.
What?
Yeah, it is very powerful.
Is truth a powerful force?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Of course not. No.
No.
Should be, but it's not.
It's not true.
No.
It is. It is.
No.
Come on.
Your world non-exists. I mean, come on.
Truth just
No.
needs to be.
You are looking at it incorrectly. I will tell you why. You have to understand why.
Lies and even
Nobody's looking for truth. I mean, we are looking here.
I didn't ask
causes you to
that.
take
I didn't ask
action.
if anybody looking for it,
Carl
right?
says that most
I
people
said,
are.
is truth in and of itself a powerful force?
So how is it forced altogether?
What?
How is it forced altogether?
How is it?
How is it
Has to be
forced?
by definition.
What does it do? I mean, what's the force? I mean, where
How
is
does it-
energy? How does it enforce anything?
How does it
Force is to
impose
enforce.
itself on you? He answered.
How?
Yeah.
Why does the physical need impose itself on you? The brain acts upon a human being based on certain physical things, actually. You know, the brain exerts physical needs. Hunger, where does hunger come from? The brain creates a feeling, or whatever we have, it's a drive that we experience as hunger.
So that's the
I don't know,
force.
I mean, you know, that's the brain, nobody knows. And so, you know,
That's force.
what does the intellect do?
Reacts.
The intellect compels you to know the truth, to know what's there. It does. That's why everybody's looking for it. Wait, hold on. No, you see, no. You're stuck in your question. You never get out of it. However, I will attempt to rescue you.
So what is Siflius?
What?
What is Siflius?
Right.
Wait.
So Sichlius is the intellect, right? That seeks truth,
The pursuit of truth.
the pursuit of truth, besides happiness.
That's what it does.
Yeah, it pursues. You're born. Let me tell you something. An infant, 1 day old, is already looking for truth.
But it's this pursuit of truth.
There's no brera. As soon as an infant is born, and the intellect is there, it's seeking the truth. And it's always looking at its environment to know what, it's always testing its environment. What is out there? Except its ability to comprehend truth is extremely limited. This is the problem with the intellect. But the force to pursue the truth is there. You ever see the curiosity of an infant? They're always testing, whatever they, but it has a very poor ability to perceive the truth, but it wants to know truth, but it's very limited. So in the beginning, it doesn't, as far as the infant is concerned, I'm the only one that exists. Then it begins to realize the concept of other, that there are other beings, and so on. Then begins to realize that, hey, I have needs, and only others can satisfy it, not me, so therefore I have to live with the wishes of others. There's a whole series of acknowledgements that an infant goes through. It's automatic. From the minute it's born, it opens its eyes. What in the world is out there? It has no choice. It's a God-given, what do you call it, instinct.
So he's driven by this force, mama?
So the neshama, Kontra Ramchal, is the entity that is the origin of that force. Man's desire to know truth is a product or a property of the neshama. Man's desire to fill needs is a property of the guf. See? You ever got that? Very important distinction. That's, the desire to know truth is a built-in into human species, and so on. Good. Okay, that's number one. Number two. However, a man has the ability to distort the truth. That's where you come in.
Thank you.
What does that mean?
But that's also intellect is doing it, right? It
Well,
looks and it
it's-
distorts
it's-
also.
Well, no, wait.
Or that's where the goof comes in to the
Yeah, wait.
effects.
Yeah, you have to go slow in this because there's a lot of concepts here. Where do you see this? The ability to distort reality, okay,
We see it all over. Yeah,
is part, it really is part of the intellect. But it's not really. It's part of the emotions in a certain sense. What does that mean? Okay. Adam Rishon. Check out Adam Rishon. Right? Chava, she sinned. She comes over to him, he sinned. And then the Roshim says to him, what'd you do? It's not, right? So Adam Rishon immediately says, almost right, he says, well, the woman that you gave me, she is the one who beguiled me. She is the one who tempted me.
He was right.
And she's the one who did it.
So what, you said,
Yeah.
you believe in it, I was just following orders. No,
Wait.
it doesn't work.
Now, what was Adam doing? What was he doing?
Looking for excuse.
Oh, he was justifying. Let's use a better word, right?
Distorting the truth.
Well, wait. He was justifying his actions. That, no, I didn't do anything wrong. I did it right? She came over and she, persuaded me to eat for my own benefit. But it's more than that. So, who cares what she did? So, Adam Rishon says, no, you gave it to me. It's your fault. See, it doesn't say, Isha, Isiani, or Oichel. It's Oisha, She, Nosat, that you gave me. That was the justification. He says, what do you want from me?
It's like you did
Did
it.
I ask you for this woman? So what Adam is saying to the Roshim is, listen, you gave me this woman, right? And I figured if you gave me a woman, she must be totally righteous. Why would I even think that she really is in it for herself? Because she knows that she's going to die, because obviously that's what the Roshim said, the day you eat it, you're going to die. So automatically when Chava ate that, she knew she was finished. She knew she was dead, And she knew the snake lied. So why did she do this to Adam? Why did she? In effect, she killed Adam. It's a murder. She murdered Adam. Why? Because she realized that what's going to happen? She's going to die, and Adam is going to be left without a wife, and he'll take somebody else. The Moshe will create another wife. So the jealousy of the fact that she won't be around, and he's going to marry somebody else, right? Oh no, I'm taking him with me, right? So in essence, she murdered Adam. That's really what it is, But that's, when you call a spade a spade. She murdered her husband because she knew the truth. If she didn't know the truth and she did it, she said she didn't know, but she knew the truth, and therefore she, in essence, killed him. That's the whole reason why you have Hadlokas Neres and all that. There's a lot of what's called rectification that she has to perform, and so on and so forth. Anyway, she extinguished the light of the world, so she has to be madlik and so on and so forth. Anyway, but the idea is that when she finally, so what Adam Rishon is basically providing is a justification. He said, listen, you gave me a woman, why would I suspect a woman wants to do evil to me? I figured you gave it to me, it must be, it's like you go into a shop, and the expert watchmaker says, here's a watch, great watch, and you get a walk out behind, you expect it to work. You see. That's called the justification. It's also called rationalization. It's like a kid, okay? A kid gets a 40 on an exam. A kid gets a 40 on an exam. Right? And the mother, kid brings home and says, the mother says, okay, how'd you do? So the kid's got to cough up the exam and says, here it is. So the mother says, 40? I don't believe this. So the kid says, well, for me, it's not my fault. The teacher's an idiot. The teacher gave a test that it has nothing to do with what we learned. So the kid clearly is seeking to put the blame on the teacher. Okay? I mean, it's something we live with every day, and it's something that goes on with the president. He always does it all day. He's always blaming somebody else. Bullshit. So I don't want to get to that, but this is we see this going on all the time.
So in essence, what you're saying is that there's
Now the question is, several questions. Why would I gotta do this? I mean, you're looking at the truth. This kid got a 40. Excuse me, he got a 40. What are you blaming the teacher for? Maybe it's your fault, right? But clearly the kid must blame somebody else, because what's the alternative? I'm dumb because I got a 40. Now, for somebody to say I'm dumb is very threatening, because if I'm dumb, who knows what the consequences are? Either my mother will deny me goodies, my father's going to beat me, or whatever, or he's going to embarrass me, right? Or and so on. Or I can't admit I'm dumb because then I can't cope with life. You see, it's threats to the ego. So therefore, what must the person do? A person he knows the truth, but he needs to deny the truth. Why? For the purpose of self-preservation. So, it's not that he doesn't want to know the truth, he does. But an Odom has the ability to distort the MS for needs called self-preservation. It's a very important idea. Okay, now, that's a very important concept. That's the problem. It's not that we don't have a desire to know the truth, of course we do. But the self-preservation need takes stronger. It takes over. It takes over, exactly. But the incredible thing is, what do you mean? Even if I have a self-preservation need, yes, and so on, why should that take over the seichel? Why should that take over? The seichel is unbelievably powerful, because the seichel says, excuse me, you know what the truth is. You're dumb. Or you didn't work hard enough, whatever it is, right? And the guy's looking at the MS. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, or I should say, out of the emotions, comes the fear that if I admit this, I'm finished in whatever way the consequences are. So therefore, he needs to distort the truth. Okay? So you have two dinim here, right? You have the ability to seek truth and to know the truth, or the force that demands that you seek the truth. And once you demand the truth, to seek it, right? And also to know it, assuming you have the proper faculties. But on the other side, right out of nowhere, so to speak, comes a need to preserve self. And that need expresses itself how? What do you mean self-preservation? What does that mean? It's a concept. What is the emotional equivalent of the need to self-preserve?
Fear?
Fear, anxiety, exactly. As soon as we are aware that we're about to go under, so to speak, we are immediately frightened. And that fear is what compels him, in a certain sense, to distort the MS. So we already have two things going on. We actually have three. We have the physical needs, we have the need for truth, and we have the ability, right, in a certain sense, to distort the MS, the truth. Now that is a murdi koyach. The ability of an individual to distort truth is an unbelievable strength.
That's a physical need.
Yeah, that's physical. Yeah.
There's only two things.
Well, the reality of the need to self-preserve is called anxiety. That's it's anxiety. It's an emotion. So you have the physical and the emotional, which is physical, and you have the desire to seek truth, which is sichli, in neshama. Okay. In psychology, that is called a defense mechanism. A defense mechanism is something that will defend me against fear or anxiety. And rationalization is a classic defense mechanism. It allows me to not to look at the fact that I'm afraid, because I'm able to say somebody else did it. You see, that's a defense mechanism. That's an incredible koyach, which means that the mind can distort reality. You know. Now there are many other. There's over 50 defense mechanisms, by the way. Not one, but there are many. I won't get into the whole thing, but rationalization is one of them. You know. But there are many defensive mechanisms. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this, okay, is everybody has this. We're inborn, and Adam Rishon was the first one to display it. I can't admit that I made a mistake. I do that, you know. Moshe says, "Excuse me, you know, why did you do this?" So Adam Rishon said, "The woman that you gave me, right? That's a defense mechanism. Why? Because if Adam Rishon realized the truth, that what do you mean? Moshe said not to eat it. Let's be frank here. You know, who cares if the woman came over to you and said, "Eat it"? But he knew that God said no. So how do you say, "Well, you gave me the woman and I thought she was perfect"? It's nonsense. You know what I'm saying? It was an immediate confrontation between two facts. One, God says, "Don't eat this," which means I don't care who tells you to eat it. Don't, right? And as a woman, even if she was great, but he should immediately said, "Excuse, you know, what do you mean? Wait a minute, you must be fabulous, great, and so on and so forth." But you know, it's not like she gave me something that was not contravened by God. It was. So he should have said, he should have said to his wife, "What are you talking about?" The Rosh Hashanah said, "No." So what do you mean? It's we don't even know the argument she used, which is interesting. The Torah never says the argument she used to convince her husband. It just says, you know, she spoke to him, and you know, and he ate of it. We do not know the argument she used. And Adam had an intellect off the charts, and we're talking a guy at like a 4 billion IQ, you know. But it's not an excuse. But Adam couldn't say, "You're right, I didn't do it." You know, he had to say, "No, I was right, you were wrong." In other words, I'm not at fault, you're at fault. You see. What do you mean? But it contravenes the truth. Because the truth is, I said don't eat it. I don't care what you thought. You know what I'm saying? So what Adam Rishon did was the first defense used in the history of mankind. Very powerful, isn't it? Because he had a need of self-preservation. He was afraid that if he was wrong, the Baruch Hu said, "Well, you're out of here." What, you know, and you're talking to a being that could do it. You know what I'm saying? It's okay, you're out, and in an instant of time, he's gone. So the immediate fear of self-preservation, which he had, you know, all of a sudden confronted him with the need to deny the reality that he is to blame for eating from that tree. Have I got that? And by the way, we all have this ability to distort the truth. Where's the classic where the Baruch Hashem says, there's a medrash, when the Baruch Hashem was writing, you know, dictating the Torah, so it says, "Bereshis Bor Elokim." You know, so Moshe Rabbeinu said, "What do you mean Bor Elokim?" Elokim is plural. It's a medrash. This is the origin of the whole thing, you know. The Baruch Hashem said, so Moshe Rabbeinu said, "What do you mean? It's Elokim is plural." You know what I'm saying? And you're gonna force people to believe there's more than one God, which is, by the way, one of the kindness that they have, you know, and so on. So Baruch Hashem said, "No, don't worry about it," because it says "boros" singular verb. You know, so people will say Elokim probably means the majesty, the plurality of Malchus, because when a king speaks to you, he always says "we," doesn't say "I." We is royalty, because a king represents everybody. So when a king speaks, really it's supposed to be a representation of everybody's voice. Alibi. But anyway, you know, famous myths. Anyway, so the Baruch Hashem said, "No, tshuva sebitzida." That's the lashon of the medrash. No, the tshuva is here. The tshuva is Elokim. You know, and then the other pasuk, which is the famous pasuk, said, you know, "Naaseh Odom b'tzalmenu." Naaseh, let us. Wow. I mean, Naaseh, let us. But again, it's royalty speaking. You know, let us. Because and so make a man in our image. Like, you know, it's like, you know. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Wait a minute, you're putting a stumbling block in front of Koifrim. You know, what are you doing? You know, and so on. The Rosh Hashanah said, listen, I need to write Elokim because I want to write Naseh, which means let us, that, you know, that I consulted with the angels. I mean, there's a reason why it says that, you know. You're taina that everybody's going to distort the emes, you know. No, you know. And then it says, Vayirotim, you know, the plural, you know. So the Rosh Hashanah says, Tshuvosi b'tzido. The tshuvo to the question, are there multiple gods or one, is right in that pasuk because there's a singular verb there. You know what I'm saying? Oh, because it says b'tzalmoi. Vayirotim adam b'tzalmoi, not b'tzalmom in their image. It says b'tzalmoi, clearly indicating there's only one God. Right? So wait a minute. So what does that mean? You see, what's the dialogue here? Because Moshe Rabbeinu said, what he's really pointing to is what we're learning. Moshe Rabbeinu says, wait a minute, you are putting a text that clearly indicates there are many gods. So the Moshe says, Shuvasi b'tzido, you'd be right, but I am immediately answering, you know, and showing people that this is not true. Because it says b'tzalmoi or b'olokim and so on. What's the Moshe saying? It's like this. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, listen, you're writing a text where people are going to believe that there are many gods. And people want to believe there are many gods. There's a whole logic behind that and so on. It's much better if there are many gods than one. Why? Because if there are many gods, then each one has a different view. And I'll do what I want. I'll do one God because he's in alliance with me. And then, you know, and then something else I do with the other God, he's in alliance with me. You know, that's one of the reasons for polytheism. Many gods. Because that's a great out. You can do whatever you want. There's always some God who agrees with you. You know. Well, if there's one God, you know, that's it. You know, you're stuck with that one God, and that's it. You got to listen to him. There's no alternative. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, you're putting this down, right? Which means that if a person has a need to want to believe in many gods, so as to satisfy many taivas, he's got his out. You know, that he won't look at the truth. You know, he won't look. He's not interested in the truth. So Moshe said, don't worry, because my job is to put down clearly an indication of what's true. And that's it. If he wants to be influenced to use a defense, that's, you know, where he believes in many gods, because he wants to believe, that's his problem. But if I have to put it down for reasons, because I want to put it down, royalty and so on, right, or I consulted with the angels and so on, I put that down. What the Baruch is saying fundamentally is that, listen, each person has those three components. It's the physical, the emotional, and the sichli, the truth, the desire to know truth. You know, if a person wants to allow his emotions, fear, overcome his seichel, that's up to him. That's his bechira. That's his free will. You see. So what the Baruch is saying, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, that people use this as an excuse not to believe in God or to believe in many gods. And the Baruch is saying, well, that's exactly the free will a person has. I'm not going to not put it down because I'm afraid the guy's going to use. That's why I gave him bechira, to choose, which means to look at the truth. Not at what you need to know, what you need to do, but to look at the emes. You see, I want to tell you something. The ability of the mind to fool itself, to deceive itself, is part of the it's an incredible ability. It's very important, by the way, because you can ask, well, why should the person do that? If I have truth on one side, and I have a physical need on the other, right? Well, why create this ability to fool myself? You know? The Russian said, you need to do that. Why is that? Because there are many situations in life where you cannot admit the truth. And they're not concerning chet and so on. For instance, let's say a person lives in a household and his parents are very abusive. Okay? That happens. That kid cannot live with fear all day long. That's what's going to happen. So in a certain sense, the kid has to deny the reality that his parents are not abusive. You see. So there are many different ways that a kid can deny the fact that his parents are really not abusive, so therefore he can continue to live in that home. And so on. So this ability to distort reality is very important for us because it allows us to live with ourselves even though there are threats to ourselves. And children, it's even more important because they can't do anything about it. An adult at least can do something about it. You know, like shoot his parents.
You need it to grow. You need that early so you can grow. Because a person who's not holding by a majag, you can believe that he is something and then get to that point.
Well, yeah, but I'm
it's
going to say
growth.
one
It's not just
problem
growth.
why we need it. We need the ability to distort reality because there are many things we can't do. So what we can do is we can alter our own understanding of the reality by denying it. And by the way, denial is a defense mechanism. Or minimization. It's not so bad. What do you mean it's not so bad? You know? Minimization denies part of the reality and therefore allows us to live with ourselves. That's why distortion of reality is as a defense mechanism, in whatever way you do it, is very important to survive. But at the same time, besides the fact that it allows us to survive self-preservation, it also allows us to do what? To cater to our needs. That's like guys, you know, a guy wants to, let's give an example. You know,
To avoid cognitive dissonance. You want to hear what makes sense to you.
No. Forget the cognitive. You know, let's say a person, he wants to enjoy a certain taiva, whatever that is, right? And all of a sudden the truth is that, wait a minute, it's wrong. You know? So a guy will say to himself, now, the taiva is not self-preservation. It's taiva. You know what I'm saying? You know, I can understand the need of a distortion for self-preservation. You can't live with yourself. You're always afraid you're going to die, you know, and you can't do anything about it. What do? So something has to work where you can live with yourself. So you need to deny in some aspect the reality. But unfortunately, we use the same mechanism for what? To get all the stuff that we don't, it's not self-preservation, it's all needs, desires. It's not needs anymore, it's desires.
But all the desires are rooted in self-preservation.
No, not really.
If I want to eat an ice cream, which I'm not supposed to,
Yeah.
it's rooted in the fact that I need to eat for self-preservation.
No, ice cream?
No, it's rooted. In
Does it say that you need to eat ice cream to live? No.
It comes from the Taras Apachila, which is a need for self-preservation.
No.
Maybe that's where it
No.
comes from.
I'm not talking about the essential idea. For instance, the guy says, well, I want to eat ice cream. Eat ice cream, you know. So somebody pointed out, excuse me, you don't eat ice cream because it has a lot of calories.
Right.
So the guy says, yeah, but it has also a lot of calcium. So why not? So what did he just do? Now, he just denied, he minimized the calorie aspect and he just promoted the calcium aspect because who cares? So that's a classic denial, or actually it's called minimization of reality. Why? Now, what happens if he would have denied himself the ice cream? He wouldn't have died. No. And we're not talking about life and death here, right? We're talking about taiva. Because he wants the ice cream, and so on. Ben & Jerry's, whatever's kosher, I don't know, whatever you're into these days, and so on, So this is what happened. The ability of a man to distort reality now goes from the stage of self-preservation to the stage of not need but wants, desires, and so we use the exact same mechanism.
Where is what coming from? Want is coming from where exactly?
Well, it's a taiva, pleasure.
Yeah, I know
it's a physical drive.
Where it's coming from? I mean, it's goof. It's not preservation. It's not a force. We were talking about self-preservation.
Taiva is a force,
but it's not a force. It's a goof has different. Self-preservation is one force. Taiva is another independent force.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, look. Let's face it. The greatest drive of all is pleasure, and the greatest, the opposite of the greatest drive, or the negatively, is fear. That's what it is. We all have taivas, because we want to experience pleasure. If you eat something that tastes great, you experience pleasure, and so that becomes a desire. It becomes a goal. Like the pursuit of we want to have pleasure, we want to have happiness. These things make us feel good, and therefore we want them. You know what I'm saying? Now, where do you see this in the Torah? Now, what does the Torah say? Don't take sheikhad. What is sheikhad? Sheikhad could be anything that addresses your self-interest. Oh, I want that. Guy walks over to a judge, and he says, listen, I know you're honest and all that kind of stuff, but I also know you need cash. He said, you don't make money. You don't make much money as a judge. It's a big ego trip, but it doesn't make you wealthy. I'll make you wealthy. I'll write out a check to your favorite charity, which in this case, the judge's favorite charity happens to be me. Or his favorite charity is called Chofetz Chaim. I want to live. These are the favorite charity that people write, to your favorite charity, of course, I give you 50 grand. Well, what happens? Well, here, the judge's face like this. The truth is, this guy lost. The other guy's right. But the other side is, I need the cash. And so on. So all of a sudden you have a conflict here. But we're not talking about a need. We're talking about a desire. In some way it's a need, because if I have 50 grand, I can do a lot better with my life, obviously, and so on. I can make my wife happy, which will makes me happy, and so on and so forth, right? So there you are, the conflict. But the person knows the MS. He knows that this guy is wrong. So what does he do? He needs to do what? He needs to deny the reality that this guy is wrong. No, really he's right. He's really right, because he can't say, well, really, that guy, Mr. Schwartz, is wrong, but I'm going to take the money anyway. Because then he's calling himself a cheat, a liar, a crook, etc., etc. But he can't call himself a crook. It's very hard to live with yourself and know you're a crook. He needs to deny that. So what does he do? And that's what the Torah says. Don't take anything that will promote your self-interest. Why? Ya'aver. He will blind himself. That means this guy doesn't even know he's a crook. So the Torah said, not only we think Ya'aver Chachomim. What's the concept of a chacham? A guy who accurately perceives reality. But if he takes a sheikhad, even a chacham who has the ability to see reality becomes blind. How? By the defense, by the denial. No, really the other guy's right. And I'll prove it. And the guy looking for all kinds of svaras. Svaras, I found Bahalt in the Rajba. And he reads the Rajba, and he interprets the Rajba that the guy's right. Meanwhile, the Rajba doesn't even talk about this. Whatever it is. But he is so into, I need the money, that I don't care what the Rajba say. He's going to say it, and that's all. And not only is the Chacham blinded, right? Yahweh Chachamim ve'yisalev divi tzadikim. Who's also can look at reality? Tzaddik. What does tzaddik do all day? A tzaddik looks at reality, because that's what to be righteous means, to know what behavior is righteous. So the Moshe says an unbelievable thing. You think if you're presented with self-interest, right? You think ich bin a chacham. Don't worry, and you're a tzaddik. The Moshe says no. There is a mechanism within you that will allow you to distort reality, and since you have a desire, you will use that mechanism so you can grab the cash. You're a chacham and you're a tzaddik. Who cares? You see, who's the greatest chacham of all? No. Who beat him? No. Who beat them all? Adam Rishon. They had the greatest intellect ever known. You'd see a cup of Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, come on. And that's the greatest intellect of all. He was. We don't even know what he was. He wasn't human, really, right? And Mardach, he used the defense mechanism to distort. What are we going to say? And so on. This is the problem. So therefore,
why do you have to use that? If he would have said, Hashem, I'm sorry.
He didn't know tshuva. See, this is the whole problem. The fear of death overcame. He didn't know about tshuva because he only knew about it by Cain. Because Cain did tshuva, so he saw he was half forgiven half. So then remember what he said? The Mendel says, if I would have known that you can actually do tshuva, in other words, you could say, I'm sorry. And there are consequences to say, I'm sorry, that the Moshe would say, okay, I will forgive whatever, half, whatever, and so on. If I would have known that, I would have done that, but it was too late, and so on and so forth, Anyway, so we have three things going on. We have the physical urges, self-preservation, and also those urges which are tremendously, they're not needs, so to speak, but they are clearly desires, which you don't need to do to survive, but we have them anyway. That's the body will give us. On the other side, we have the desire for truth, which is the intellect. And in the middle is the ability to deny. It is a mechanism. It is the ability of the mind to distort the truth in order to either survive or to get the goodies. One or the other, you see. And that's really, what is a psychotic? You know, there's an interesting Chazal. What's a Chazal say? Ein Odom Chote Ela Imke Nichnes Beroshtos. A man cannot sin unless there enters in him a spirit of shtus, folly or stupidity. What does that Chazal mean? Right? No. What do you mean shtus? You mean I can't sin unless I'm a shaita? Very hard to believe. Shtus, ruach shtus.
Because the truth stares you in the face.
Exactly. What the Moshe was saying is that the power of the intellect to seek truth is so powerful that it can beat any taiva, anything. So therefore, the Moshe says, I got to even out the odds. And the odds are, in other words, if I had no mechanism to deny the truth, I could not sin. I could not sin. Because the perception of reality is so great that it will beat out any taiva, even self-preservation, maybe. But certainly all the taivas. So what the Baruch Hashem says, in order to even out, right, to balance out, he gives us the ability to distort reality. What is a shoita? A psychotic person. What does a psychotic person do? He denies reality. The classic symptom of a psychotic is a person who denies reality. Why? Why is this guy denying reality? You know? Why is that?
He's sick.
No, we know he's sick.
Right.
But why is he doing it? That's number one. And number two, how does he do it? You know?
Can't process.
It's like a guy walked into an in-sale asylum, you know, and one guy was saying, I'm the Messiah. This guy was visiting a mental institution. He was interviewing some of the inmates, what you call the patients, you know. And one of these, so he was asking them, why are you here, you know? Because I'm the Messiah, and they're trying to persecute me because they don't want me to come to redeem the universe. You know, so he's walking to the boy. So so he's walking to the next, room, and he sees the guys laughing. He says, "What are you laughing at?" He says, "Because that guy's crazy. He thinks he's the Messiah." You know, so he asks him, "Well, how do you know he's not?" He says, "I'm God. I didn't make him the Messiah." Anyway, but. That's funny, you know. But what am I trying to say? They both denying reality. Nicht is the Goyal, and nicht is the Rebbeinu Shalom. So, what are they doing? And the answer is, they have used this defense mechanism to the nth degree, where they are in complete denial of reality. But it's the same mechanism. You should know, the difference between a healthy person and a psychotic is a difference in what? In quantity, not quality.
Intensity.
Yes.
Yes, it's not quality, it's quantity. You know, it's like they say, every person has his breaking point. Every person, you know. And Nebuch, these guys had low breaking point, either that or the pressures, of the threat to their being was so profound that Nebuch, they used that faculty of distortion. In order for them, imagine a guy who lives in a home, where the parents are constantly saying to him, "You're stupid. You're an idiot. I wish I never would gave birth to you." I mean, these kind of terrible statements, you know. So he's a kid growing up. I mean, he's shattered, you see. So automatically, what must he do? What he does is he takes the ability to distort reality and says, "Wait a minute. I don't have to be worried, because if my parents are saying I'm zero, I didn't have a right to be born, then this kid has experienced all kinds of terrible emotions. Guilt, because he's causing his parents sorrows. Anxiety, fear, they're going to kill him or throw him out of the house, and they'll drop dead. All kinds of, shame, because they make him feel like a zero, all kinds of terrible emotions that a child cannot bear. What does he do? So he says, so he has the ability to completely distort automatically, right? And he says, oh, I'm the Messiah. But it's the exact same mechanism that everybody else uses to be chayte. That's why Chazal used the same word, shtus. Now you understand. Because a shayte uses what? The ability to deny, minimize, or in other words, not look at reality, but it's extreme. Where the mind just went haywire and says, I can't even look at reality. I have to create my own, so I'll feel good about myself. You see? So either I'm God, I'm the Messiah, or I'm special, etc., etc. Okay? So what the psychotic is, nothing more than an individual that used the capacity of the mind to deny reality to its nth degree, and then he becomes non-functional.
They
Terrible.
become stuck with it?
Yeah, well, no.
I'm saying these psychotic individuals, that's it?
Oh, no, well, no, they can be helped. There are drugs, that can alter the mind's belief that he is God. Yeah, that's why they take all kinds of drugs. No, unfortunately, there are drugs that can help this person, and so on. I don't want to get, it's not a lesson in psychology, but what I'm trying to point out is that everybody has that capacity, except they had such extreme circumstances that they used it to the nth degree, to an extreme degree, and therefore they left reality altogether. So therefore they're non-functional, and so on. However, everybody has the exact same mechanism, the ability to deny or minimize or whatever, confront reality and be able to survive if it's threatening, right? And that's why the Chazal say shtus. Now you understand the term. Ein odem choyte, a person does not sin, unless he what? Denies some aspect of reality. In other words, ruach shtus, the shoyte, the psychotic, uses the complete ruach shtus. It uses, but everybody has to be able to deny, because a person cannot say, I'm awful, I'm evil. People cannot say that and survive, because nobody wants to see himself as a thoroughly evil person. They'll all in some way rationalize. Even Hitler rationalized. He thought he was doing the world a favor. It's incredible. A guy should commit such evil and say, I'm not evil. I'm doing the world a favor. Why? Because the Jews have made us wimps. And we're somebody. They've given us a moral conscience. We don't want this. We don't want that Torah. They've made us feel moral. They made us feel guilty. They took away our incredible sense of we are. Deutschland über alles. You ever hear the national anthem? Deutschland, Deutschland, über alles. I think that's where it goes. What is über alles? Germany over all. It's psychotic. Over all. What do you have to be over all for? You can't live with everybody else? It's a delusional, and that's their national anthem.
Till now?
Excuse me.
Till now?
What?
Till now?
I think they still have it. I'm not, as far as I know. So, it's the whole concept of the Aryan race, blonde hair and blue eyes, is sick guys. You know why? So Hitler actually thought, he rationalized. He said, I'm not an evil guy. I'm okay. In fact, God's going to reward me. Because I killed the Jews. Why? Because they have destroyed the ability of a man to feel like he's somebody or supreme. Incredible. That's how far ein odem choyte ela imke nichnes boiruach shtus. And now you understand why Chazal used the exact same lashon, shoyte, as shtus, because that's exactly what he employs. You see, and the first one to use it was Adam Rishon. You see, and that comes from the guf. The guf has the needs, whether it be self-preservation, the need for self-preserve, and that the way a person does that is when he experiences fear and anxiety. It also has taivas. A person wants pleasure. He seeks pleasure. Most of the world, everybody's, just that's how you explain the travel industry and the entertainment industry and all the restaurants. It's all about taiva in the end, really. Does a guy have to eat steak or he dies? No. A guy can eat chum, they'll survive. That's debatable. That's arguable. But anyway. And so on. So you're looking at needs, real needs, and you're looking at types. And the Rebbe Hashem, actually the Rebbe Hashem is meramas this, which is incredible. When he says Leisikach Shoichad, why? Because Shoichad is a taiva, you want money, and it's going to blind whether you are righteous or chacham. It doesn't make a difference. And these guys are reputed to be the best guys that can see reality. But the question is, what do you mean blind them? How? Defense mechanisms. That's how. Very important idea. And that's from the guf. You see, why? So I mentioned why there's a defense, because we can't live with ourselves unless we can minimize reality. Very hard, especially a child. Even an adult. An adult can't live with himself, he can't deny, minimize, or whatever. You see. So therefore, this is critical, this idea. But that tells you something else. That the pursuit of truth, or the recognition of truth, which is sichli, is so powerful that it can vanquish the taivas of the guf. That's what you realize. That's what the Rambam said, Shuvasa B'tzido, In other words, he has Bechira. So if the Rambam hadn't given us the ability to deny, there would be no such thing as a Yetzer Hara. Interesting. Malachim. Can Malachim be Choyte? No. Why not? I have a Yetzer Hara. What does that mean, I have no Yetzer Hara? It means I don't have a guf, so there's no physical forces. And not only that, they don't have the ability to deny. They're stuck with the truth. And once they see the truth, they're tzaddikim, kedoshim, or whatever you call them, A malach doesn't have those very things that distort and compel us to sin. They don't have it. So what are they going to do? So they only have the truth. The only reason why we could sin is because ruach shtus. That's the tremendous premise of the Chazal. Without ruach shtus, without the ability to deny, we cannot sin.
So
See. Anyway.
So what's the Yetzer Hara?
So this, we now begin to understand what the Ramchal is saying, that you have the physical on one side, and you have the intellect, which is a secret of truth on the other. What we still have to understand is what is the Yetzer Tov.
Yetzer Hara.
If I could
This is the Yetzer Hara. The physical drives is the compelling force to satisfy needs. Whether the need is to self-preserve or taiva, the need to feel pleasure, etc. This is the Yetzer Hara. Where do you see the right to that?
Why is it Yetzer Hara?
Not why. How do I know?
You said there's a conflict between the guf and the intellect.
Yeah.
Why is there a conflict? I'm saying the truth is I have to self-preserve. Like what? It's all
No.
goes together.
But I have to self-preserve. But what does the body say?
I have self-preserve.
But we don't respond to self-preservation, really. We don't say we have to preserve. What do we respond to? If there's a tiger looking at you and your dinner, what do you respond to? I have to self-preserve. No, you don't tired at all, right? What do you respond to? Fear. It's an emotion.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't think about why we need to survive. We don't think about, what's my kid going to do without me?
That's truth. There's nothing wrong.
We don't think about that. We have incredible fear and we must flee. You see, that's the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is nothing more, contra Ramchal, is nothing more than the taivas, self-preservation, all the psychological and biological needs of an individual is the Yetzer Hara. Where do you see that from Chazal? There's a Gemara. What does the Gemara say? Yoma. What does the Gemara say in Yoma? That the Chazal said that the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah is too great. It destroys us. It killed our base and made this. We got to get rid of it, which is incredible. Chazal are going to tamper with the human being. They're going to tamper with the genetics. It's really what it is, because this is all genetics in the end, right? So Chazal killed the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. But what they really did, right, is they killed more of it. They killed the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. And by the way, that leads us to a whole different area of what in the world causes people to bow down to an idol. Like, are they crazy? We look at them there, they're out of their mind. In fact, even there's a Gemara about them with Menashe and Rav Ashi. But put that aside from it, But, so what did they do? They killed the Yetzer Hara. So because they killed the Yetzer Hara, guess what? Nobody wanted to reproduce. No taiva. So what do you see? That the taivas of the guf is the Yetzer Hara. Because that's what stopped when they killed the Yetzer Hara. of when they killed. So what they do? So they reinstated him, whatever, which means they reinstated the tivus of the body, but they blinded it, which means that a person is no longer interested in incest, which is to have relations with the immediate family. That's what they killed. Person not interested with his mother or his sister or whatever. Well, that's really not so. With mother, yes, but sisters, not incest in that. But anyway, I'll get into that. But anyway, so you see clearly from that Gemara that what the Yetzer Hara is. The Yetzer Hara is fundamentally the tivus of the goof. It's body promoted, generated.
Why is that against truth? I mean,
No, it has nothing with truth. It's an urge.
No, but you said there's
It's
a
a feeling.
confrontation between.
What?
There's a confrontation between body needs.
Which is
and
the urge.
and
The
truth.
urge,
Right.
right?
And
Is
the
an
truth.
urge.
Right.
And truth.
There's no confrontation.
Sure. What happens if the urge is to sin? And the truth is don't, or else the bunch will punish you. There you are. It's a confrontation. Look, there's no, eating is none, but what is the Torah fundamentally?
How you.
No, yeah, that's true, but what is the Torah really fundamentally? It's a instruction book, or rather it's a legal book that says, I require 613 different activities or actions. It's really what it is. And most of them, in fact all of them are restrictions, basically. The Torah is a document, sefer, that compiles a list of 613 restrictions. And those restrictions, right, are against the way I want to live, right? So there you are, that's the conflict. If a person does connect those 613, then he has to face what? Fear of retribution, guilt, shame, etc., right? There's your conflict right there. You know what I'm saying?
So Yetzer Tov is sichlis.
What?
Yetzer Tov is sichlis.
Now, so that's the Yetzer Hara. The real question now is, what in the world is the Yetzer Tov? We know what the seichel does. Yes, the seichel is the desire, is the ability to comprehend truth. But what does the Gemara say about the Yetzer Tov? It doesn't enter until you're 13 years old, or bas mitzvah. Yes.
But like Hesse, before we move too far ahead, there's something that's really a strong reaction.
Yeah.
As far as seeking the truth, when you read the other side of the coin, when you remove defense mechanisms and you remove tivus and you remove rationalization, if someone's ready, willing, and able, many people are to seek the truth without any obstruction. Still, everybody ends up at different destinations and different degrees of that because the truth doesn't say, yes, you have reached the authentic truth. Is it really knowable? Is our search, are we able to really know the truth?
Yeah, of course we
without
are.
that confirmation.
We have to be able to, or else this world is a big mistake.
So why does everyone feel...
You have to be able to achieve the
amongst us,
MS.
we should do this, no, you don't have to do
I want
that.
to tell you something interesting. I'll ask you a question. Which is the greatest obstacle to truth? The difficulty in using the intellect to find the truth? Or the fact that we have to always contend with the fact that if we do know the truth, we can't live our tivus? Which is the biggest obstacle to truth? Think about that.
You repeat.
Depends whom you ask, probably.
Shall I what? Repeat it?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. Which is the biggest obstacle to truth? Think about this. Is it the inability to ascertain the truth? Which means that...
With certainty.
Well, even without certainty, but just the pursuit of truth is that, and therefore you got to think hard. You got to analyze and think hard. Using the intellect to search for the truth. And so, is that difficulty? Is there an obstacle of that, or is the real obstacle, or the obstacle, the fact that hey, I don't want to know the truth, not when it conflicts with what I want. I got tivus. I have a lot of urges, needs, and psychological needs and all that. I got to feel like somebody. You know what I'm saying? I have to have taiva. What's the point? And therefore, that mess, or that conglomerate, taivas and needs, all the psychological, the biological needs of the physical, the human body, will now interfere with the truth by employing a defense mechanism, because that's how it's going to deal with it. And therefore, that's the obstacle to know the truth.
It depends what type of person you are.
Wait. You hear the question?
Yeah.
Which is the obstacle?
I would say
The pursuit, right, or the peripheral
Baggage.
baggage?
I would say
yeah.
the pursuit.
I would call
because-
baggage. I would never.
I would say the pursuit for me because you can change, grow, and adapt and live different ways. But with this pursuit, it seems like we're either going by our hunches or what our fellow human beings are teaching us.
Yeah.
And where's the objective?
The truth
you are
is-
correct 100%.
The truth is they're both obstacles. They're both
Right,
obstacles.
and we need to-
Why was there revelation? Why was there Har Sinai? Why?
Even then, there's a fraction of that wasn't our direct.
Because the
first-hand
problem
experience.
is most people cannot seek the truth, or they can't because their mental faculties are not adequate to even know how to seek the truth. But what's even more important is most people, they don't want to know the truth. They only want to know the truth that will accommodate their taivas. That's the only truth I want to know. You know, you ever hear the expression, a guy wants to do something, and you say, no, you can't do this, and he presents a whole bunch of facts. And the guy says, excuse me, don't confuse me with the facts. Don't confuse me with the facts. Come on. Well, you're like, what? Because what is he really saying to you? He says, of course I want to know the truth, but not when they interfere with my ability to do everything I want. You see. He says that, but B'chonim Wasserman said that. He said, which is, very valid, he says, he brings Aristotle, in the Kovetz Mamon or whatever, he's Aristotle. And he was he was an incredible thinker. The Rambam holds that Aristotle would have been a Navi. Could have been a Navi. That's how great his intellect was, except for whatever reason. He wasn't Navi because even a guy can be a Navi, which you see by Bilam and so on. But he wasn't, whatever, because he didn't have all the attributes and so on and so forth. So Reb Chaim Wasserman says, well, how? How is it possible that Aristotle, who was the greatest thinker, he was a massive intellect, massive, how come he didn't see the emes? So what he asks is, so if he didn't see the emes, what do you want from us? It's a good kasha. Ma'adach, he what? He didn't see the emes, Aristotle, and all the other guys and so on. So what do you want from us? We Zikr don't see the emes. We don't have their intellects. So you know what he answers? Rabbi Chanan? He says, no. The obstacle to Aristotle wasn't his ability to see the truth. His obstacle was, don't confuse me with the facts. He wanted to live his life, his Taiva life, whatever that was, and so on and so forth. So therefore, what he wanted to see, whatever had nothing to do with his life, he was incredible. Whatever had anything to do with his life, he said, no, I don't want to look at it. And he just employed any of the defense mechanisms to do that, because that's what we have. We are able to do that. That's what Rabbi Chanan says. So what Rabbi Chanan is revealing in many ways a Murdig Zach. He's saying the real obstacle in the end isn't the intellect, it's the guf. The guf doesn't allow us to see the emes because don't confuse me with the facts. Don't tell me what the reality is. I want to live my life. You see? That's the problem.
So the more chacham you are, the more defense mechanism you know.
The more chacham, more what?
He said the more chacham you are, the higher your Yetzer Hara. Because you have
Well,
more
that's a
defense
different.
mechanism.
Yeah, that's a different thing. So they balance out.
Right.
Yeah, that's what Tosfos. So Tosfos says, it says like we should be mispal, that we should be matzlich and ruchnius. So there's a Tosfos that says, Achen mispalel, before you pray that there should be more ruchnius and so on, pray that food shouldn't enter your body. Should the toichal, I think, machol masum, and so on, or just a machol, rebega, madan, whatever. What's Tosfos saying? Because what Tosfos is revealing an unbelievable emes. He's saying the problem with truth isn't the intellect, it's taivas. So first, before you pray, please, give me the ruchnis, the insight, the emes. What do you mean emes? It's going to be distorted anyway by the guf, the achila, whatever we want. So pray first that you should control your taivas, and then when you see the truth, you'll say, okay, it's the taivas, all the needs that kill us, really, in the end. Because like I say, don't confuse me with the facts. It means the only truth I want to know is whatever will allow me to live a hefkedig life. That's it. That's all I want to know. I don't want anything else, even if it's true. So that's what Tosfos is saying. So therefore, if you're going to pray for success in ruchnius, the first thing you have to pray for is not to see the truth, is not to be distorted by your taivas. You see? So what that Tosfos recognizes is the greatest really obstacle to truth isn't the difficulty in ascertaining the truth. It's the blindness that you will employ because of your taivas. It's shaychan. It's simple. It's sheikhad. It's called sheikhad. The guf is always presenting you sheikhad, which is self-interest. That's the problem. So you're always contending with sheikhad, whatever the form is, whether it be money or taiva or whatever, and so on. This is the problem, and it's a very important secret about hatzlacha. That a tzaddik, if he wants to achieve great levels of ruchnius, right? So what are you going to say? Well, you got to learn more, you got to daven more, and so on. Really? No. What you really have to do is you got to work on your taivas. You got to work on your midas. You got to work on all the stuff that the body is trying to give you sheikhad. Once you've eliminated that, then you got a chance. Which is interesting. You know how many times you meet a Talmid Chacham, which is interesting. Whatever. I mean, I've met guys who are really good. I'm not saying chas v'shalom everybody, but I'm just trying to illustrate a point. You meet a guy, and you look at the guy's a big Talmid Chacham and so on and so forth. The guy's a murder bal gaiva. How did that get through? You know what I'm saying? They're a guy, you meet like that, arrogant people. And by the way, don't be fooled what arrogance is. There are different levels of arrogance. I'm not talking about the guy who says you're zero. No, that's a conspicuous level of arrogance. I'm a guy who, you can see just by his bearing, looks at you, he says, who are you? Just by his bearing, doesn't say anything. There are many, many, many different manifestations of arrogance and so on. But you realize this guy's an arrogant person. A haltzach von zich, as they say. He holds from himself. He's smug. He's sanctimonious. He's self-righteous. Whatever, and that's not a nivus, that's arrogance, different level of arrogance, whatever. So you ask yourself, how'd that get through? How can you be a tremendous Talmid Chacham and be arrogant? And the answer is, don't confuse me with the facts. Whatever Torah I need to know, I'll know. But, I have a need to feel like somebody. I have a need to be somebody like that. So therefore, whatever's nogeah in Torah that says don't do that, I erase. I don't look at. And I will be an arrogant person. Because I need to be arrogant. I need to feel like I'm somebody. For whatever reason, So that sheikhad is to immediately dismiss aspects of Torah or distort or deny any aspect of Torah that will confront the sheikhad. This is the rule, you see. And that's what answers the question. And that's what Tosfos is saying. If you want to be a tzaddik, you want to be somebody that made it in ruchnis, the first thing you got to work on is what? Is the tendency toward sheikhad. Sheikhad. What I'm telling you is a profound understanding of why we go amiss, we go awry. You don't realize that. It's a very profound understanding of what's the problem of human nature. Why is it everybody sins? I don't care who they are, and so on. Why is that? Because there's an aspect of the person that has needs and desires. Whatever, without going into what builds those needs and desires, especially the types. Many guys are on an ego trip. How many times you walk in a place and see, what kind of place is this? Everybody's on an ego trip. And so on. And they don't even realize it. And so therefore they conduct themselves with arrogance or snobbery or whatever, And they don't even realize that. They don't want to look at it. They deny it, you see? And even though they can be tremendous Talmidei Chachamim, because the answer is they haven't worked on their guf, they haven't worked on their psychological or biological forces. They're not even aware of it. And that will come, that's the sheikhad, the self-interest, and immediately distort anything in the Torah that says, no, you can't do that, you see. So that's a very important concept, and most people are not aware. And the Torah said that by the Leisikach Sheikhad. It's an unbelievable concept. Ki ya'ave eini chachomim. And a chacham is a guy who's an expert truth seeker. And a tzaddik is certainly an expert truth seeker. Won't help. And what's funny about it is the Torah is not saying those guys who are aspiring to be a Talmid Chacham or a tzaddik. No, we're talking about finished products. It will distort a tzaddik already a tzaddik. And the tzaddik is the dayan. Right? He's the dayan. Or the chacham is the dayan. We're talking about guys who made it. Tzidkis or chachma. Right? And all of a sudden they wind up being a dayan, whatever. The Torah says, I don't care what you've done. You are going to buy into the sheikhad. What a statement about human nature. It's an incredibly profound understanding of human nature and what the obstacles are to achieve any greatness, you see. And this is what the Ramchal is saying. I'm amplifying what the Ramchal says. That's really what I'm doing. That when we talk about chumrius, let's understand what we mean by chumrius. And when we talk about seichel, what do we mean? And then, okay, what happens between them? This is what happens. Why can't it be? It says that Yetzer Tov enters when you're bar mitzvah. How?
Intellect is not fully there till
That's
the
not true.
mind,
I would tell you something. There are 10-year-old guys that are Iluyim. What are you going to do about them? No, by 12
in their mind,
They're what?
mature,
You're not talking about intellect when you use the word maturity. You realize that. Maturity has nothing to do with intellect.
saying
I'm talking about intellect.
the Vilna going, the little Shas.
You know, you wouldn't want to take on the Vilna Goyen in a battle of Gemara when he was 6. You'd have real problems. Yeah, and it would be very ego deflating for you that a 6-year-old kid just whopped you. So what are you going to say? The Vilna Goyen doesn't have a Yetzer Tov? Wow. He doesn't have an intellect? It's absurd. And the average 10-year-old is a bright guy. Come on. They know reality. Sometimes they're better at it than adults. So then what does the Chazal mean? That the Yetzer Tov enters at 13? Good question. I will answer that next week.
So seichel is the
I will leave you with a cliffhanger.
So seichel, we're saying seichel is the pursuit of truth?
Yes, correct, yes. It's the instrument of truth. Got the answer now?
How can we call the
What the
Yetzer?
real problem is? It's not the Seichel. It's the whole other side, the whole Sheikhad.
How can we call the Yetzer Hara Ra? It's part of the Yetzer Hara.
So next week we wanted to 9, that's what we're on.
How can-
Enjoy.